Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the head of marketing at InfoTools. Today, we're joined by not one, but two guests who played a key role in helping maintain high standards of practice in the market research space. The first is Annie Pettit, Chief Research Officer at E2E Research, and the second is Elissa Molloy, Director at ISO Audit Solutions. Thanks for joining us on the show, Annie and Elissa.
I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about quality.
You're quite all right, and you're welcome. So it's exciting to have you both here. What's the significant matter that's drawn both of you onto the show today?
I guess for me, what's really important to me about the standards is that it's a great way to make sure everyone's talking the same language. So if we can help people understand why speaking the same language, helping buyers talk in a way that sellers can understand and vice versa, it makes the process of research much easier for everyone. And everyone knows that they're getting what they think they're getting, and everyone understands what they think they're buying. So it's a good deal for everyone involved.
And I think that a lot of companies in our research and insights industry aren't aware that there's a specific international global standard that has been written for our industry. So it's completely relevant for their business. It's been designed for them, and it helps to sort of establish what it means to run our businesses efficiently, ethically, and securely. And it's also done by a third-party certifier, so it is checked by an external auditor. So it means that clients can be assured that the processes have been verified, and in often cases, achieving certification is exponentially much more efficient and cost-effective, so far less expensive than what people think. So it is a terrific standard, and I'm here to kind of sell its praises.
Yeah, so the genesis of this podcast came about when I was asking my boss, is there an ISO standard for market research? And we didn't know. So what did we do? Jumped on Google and had a look, and wow, there was. So a cold call or email later, and we're able to find out that you two were both happy to come on and chat about ISO 20252. So how did it come about, and what were both of your roles in the process?
Sure. I hear you say the name of it. In my head, I'm just reaming up, 20252 is this, and 19731 is this. We just talk in numbers now. We've been doing this for so many years. It's just natural for us. I came in the 20252 standard sort of part way through. So Elissa can talk about the full scheme of things. But when I came in, I was part of a startup doing social media research. It was brand new. No one else was really talking about that. But we were doing social media research in terms of sampling strategies, box scores, means, and standard deviations. And this was really unusual in the social media space. So the 2025 team asked me to get involved to help with that portion of the standards, because there are a variety of components in the standard. And I think Elissa's going to go through a lot of those different components. But I was heavily involved with just that one section. To help fill out all the details there. And once I was involved with that section, it just expanded into, well, I have experience in the questionnaire design area and in sampling, so I could help in a variety of other areas. So after the standard was fully put together, I got to add little pieces along the way to what the team had already built. But Elissa can tell you from day one.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be involved in the international committee. It's called TC225. And I was the CEO of the Research Society for many years, and I joined in 2005. And we spent several years on this committee, we had countries represented from 21 countries around the world, and everyone came with their various levels of experience of standards. Australia had a very solid background in standards. We had started with a UK scheme called IQCA that focused it on interviewer quality standards, because that's a nice place to start in field work and put some standards around. And then we had also written our own Australian standard. So when I had joined, it was really beneficial for me having that experience in writing standards. And we looked at developing a standard that would cover the entire research management process. And so obviously with 21 countries involved with lots of different standards, we had to find kind of a consensus around what did we think was the minimum best practice standards that would suit all different markets and that would suit all different types of businesses. So the initial standard, 20252 as it's now known, was first launched in 2007, and then the committee met back up again over several years and made sure it was revised to keep it current and keep it up to date with methodologies and technology. And it was launched again in 2012 and then again in 2019. And now we feel we have a standard that can cope with lots of different new methodologies, as Annie mentioned, and is more robust. But obviously standards should always be revised, and this standard will be revised in 2024. So it's always been kept current. And already there are things in it that we can tweak and make better, but as a whole, this is the best version of the standard that we have.
Cool. So let's take a closer look then at what the certification is looking for, what boxes need to be ticked in order to comply.
Yeah. So look, it is a very robust standard, and I'd say it's broken into two parts. The first thing is looking at business management standards. So how does your business operate? Things like confidentiality of research, human resources, infrastructure and personnel, information security, how you manage your subcontractors, general requirements that all businesses have to look at, including legal requirements. And then there are specific methodologies that you need to look at. So we've put those into annexes. And there's a different annex for each methodology, which means that it's really flexible and companies can choose which type of methodology they do, and which they don't. So they can pick and choose.
Yeah, cool. Is there any crossover then between some of the others, say like 27001, for instance? So if you do that, then you've got half the job done.
That's a really great question, because in this standard, the 2019 version, for the first time, we put in some information security standard requirements because we saw it was such a big, it was an issue that was affecting so many research organisations. And so we have a section called 4.3, which does look at how you manage information security. So ISO 27001 is a very big standard, and that's the information security standard. That is a huge investment for a company. But if you, as a good starting point, you can take on 20252 and you will get standards and requirements that are specific to our business, as well as some information security requirements, which is what clients want. So it's a good starting point. And once you have that, some companies then also choose to go on and get 27001.
Yeah, cool. So the industry is quite broad. We have in-house teams, agencies, consultants, suppliers, vendors, etc. Who is covered by the standard?
So everyone can be covered by the standard. Everyone who wants it can be. So even if you're a small recruitment agency or a data insights agency and just have a couple of people, it's relevant for you just as it is for a full research house. And that's because the standard has been written in such a way that everyone does the core requirements, and then you can just choose at least one annex to be certified to. So if you just do qualitative recruitment, there is an annex called fieldwork that covers both the qual and the quant disciplines, such as face-to-face, telephone and recruitment, and you just would look at the recruitment standards. So you kind of can self-select things that are relevant and not so relevant. You advise the auditor of that, and that defines your scope of the standard, and then you will get audited to that scope.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's what's really great about the standard. There are multiple annexes. So if you are only qual, you only certify or attest to the qual annex. You don't have to worry about the sampling. You don't have to worry about digital. You just have to focus on your own section. One thing I'll also mention about in terms of who is covered, when you certify or attest to one of these annexes, what it means is that whoever uses your services knows that all the work you do is certified or attested to. So if you're using third parties, suppliers, you know that whomever they're working with also are certified to those standards. So you're assured of great quality work in all aspects of what that company is doing for you.
Cool. So are there aspects of the certification that insights teams should focus on first, areas perhaps that need the most work, or even what the easiest ones are to get some quick wins?
I work with a lot of companies, helping them implement the standard, and my company also audits them. And what I find is that companies often have many more processes in place than they realize. And often it's just formulating it into a framework that fits the standard. But it's really important that it works for your business and that every process and procedure that you put in place is adding value for your business. So my message about this standard is that it will help you add value, both internally with your teams, with your employees, with your stakeholders, but also with the clients and your end clients. I think it's a great standard to add value in numerous ways. I think the hardest thing is getting started, and sometimes the initial investment can seem overwhelming, but once you realize what it can save you a lot of rework, a lot of wasted resources. Once you have your framework, it's a great thing for if you have staff turnover. It's easy to fit new team members in. They can clearly see your documented processes and procedures. You have training established for them. So it's very easy for them to join the business. I think a good place to start would be picking your key methodology that you use, whether it's online research, if you're a panel company, picking your panel, and then looking at the requirements and seeing how you fit against those, and then making a start there. And then you could allocate someone to look at the general business requirements, those core requirements I talked about at the beginning.
Yeah, one thing with the standards is you may not realize that you have a lot of these processes already built into your system. You may not have documented them all. They may not be all written out, but you have them. So once you take the time to actually document all your processes, you can quickly see what matches, the small things that may not match quite as well as you would like. And you can just go through your processes and see what are the little things you can tweak. And you're pretty much all the way there once you've documented what you're already doing.
It's a great piece of advice. Are there any myths about these standards which you've come across and think, well, actually, that's not quite true?
So I'll mention two. I hear these ones fairly regularly. So one is standards get in the way of innovation. And for me, that's like a complete halt. Absolutely not. Standards have almost nothing to do with innovation. They're about communication and transparency, letting your research buyers know how you do things, what they can expect from you, what your regular processes are, so they understand how it is to work with you. There's nothing there about you can or can't do something. You could absolutely be as innovative as you want to be. So there's never a barrier there. The second thing I've heard a few times is we don't want to certify because then we'll have to reveal proprietary information. Again, absolutely not. No one is interested. Well, maybe some people are interested in your proprietary information, but as part of the certification process, has nothing to do with that. Again, it's back to processes, transparency, communication. For example, we don't want to know what the specific variables and beta values in your algorithms are. We want to know, there is an algorithm in place. It's based on demographic information. That's it. You know, how do things happen? It's using AI. AI happens in this place and this place. We don't need to know what it is. We just need to, the clients just need to know what are the processes, how will you communicate with them? That's the extent of the information that is required.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Annie. I think also that auditors sign a confidentiality form, and even though they look at your processes from the inside and look at what you said to the client and your proposal matches actually what you delivered in the report, they're not interested in the format and in your proprietary information. They're just looking at what you said you do is what you actually did. So I think you can be secured of that. I think there are other myths that it's cost effective, that it's expensive, when in fact, if you are very efficient about your processes and documenting them, the auditing isn't overly long. It depends on how many annexes you do, but it can be quite cost effective. You'd be surprised that it doesn't cost, say, the tens of thousands of dollars that an ISO 27001 audit can cost. It's very specific to our industry, so it usually is between 1 day and 3 days is an audit. And you can do it all online now. I mean, the pandemic has taught us that auditing can be done over Zoom. So you don't have to have auditors in there raking through your business. It's nothing like that. The auditor will ask you for evidence and you show them the evidence. So it is a very streamlined process now. I think another myth is that it's not suitable for my business, and it's suitable for all businesses that are interested and conduct market research, social research, opinion research, or if you do data insights, any aspect of our business, this standard works for you. You just simply do not look at the requirements that aren't relevant for your business.
Right. If you're in digital analytics, you do AI and market research, completely applicable there. There's a digital analytics section annex just for those folks. So basically any type of company doing market research, social research, there is an annex specific to the work that you're doing.
Very cool.
Right.
So what's the overall awareness and uptake of this certification, the standard?
Yeah, so I think some countries have really taken it on board, and the countries with a history of standards are the UK. They've had a long history. Australia, we have about 140 companies over here that are certified to 20252. The UK has about 90 to 100. Spain and the Netherlands also have quite high numbers. I know the Netherlands are very committed to standards. And in Asia Pac, I find the Japanese have taken on this standard. They do a slightly different version. They don't have third-party auditing, but also across all of Asia, I've seen a number of countries take up the standards. So it's quite exciting to see the growth in the APAC area, but I'll let Annie talk about North America.
This half of the globe. So in Canada, we have CRIC, which is the Canadian Research Insights Council. And all of those member companies, there's over 80 members and partners at this point. All of those will have to certify or attest to 20252 within the next year or two. So that's going to be, you know, up to 80 companies, depending whether you're a company or a partner, that will be certifying or attesting to that standards. So what it does mean is within Canada, there's going to be some, I'll say some stiff competition, because there's going to be a set of research companies where you can be assured of the quality that you're going to get from their companies. And then another set of companies that are following a different path. So buyers will have to decide what's more important to them, having standards for processes and communications, or working with people who do things a little bit differently. In the US, they're still building certification and testing there. They have CERC, the Certification Institute for Research Quality, that does a lot of certification for US and global companies as well. You can use any certification body you wish. If you're in the USA, you're not restricted to just CERC. You can work with Elissa. So it is, the standard is quickly growing within North America. And I think a lot of buyers and sellers are realizing the advantages of being certified, the peace of mind, the comfort you get from knowing that the processes, all the communication follows a path that you can trust, that you know about. So I think that's the path that a lot of companies are moving towards.
I think I'll add to that because I partner with CERC, which is the body in America, and they've recently just launched a Quality for All campaign, really talking to businesses about why is this certification, this standard so important, and what can end clients get out of it from purchasing from suppliers that have this certification. And so they're really quite excited about debunking some of the myths around the standard, about showing that it's accessible, available for all, and the benefits of it. This consistency of quality outcomes is the main benefit for everyone. And internally for an organization, all my companies talk about the value that they've found about implementing standard processes, documenting them, having that as a fantastic resource. And what we learned in Australia and how we've got so many companies certified to this standard is that our peak bodies really saw the value in this standard and provided a lot of templates and tools. And we're happy to share those templates and tools with the rest of the world and help you all, because it does, if you have something that you can just grab and that you can implement what you do in your business, tweak it to how it works for you, it makes it much easier than having to start from scratch.
Very cool. If we think about the firmographics, so the size of business, etc., is there any are there some that have jumped onto this sooner rather than later? Or are you seeing quite a spread of uptake across the different sizes of enterprises?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a spread. So the large companies, the larger organizations, definitely, because clients are demanding standards in all different ways for them. But I think with the impact of things like privacy, data protection regulation across the globe, standards are becoming more and more important. And the great thing about 20252, it's been designed to say that you must meet the legal requirements no matter what country you're in. So if you're in Australia, you need to meet Australian privacy legislation. If you're in the UK, you must meet data protection legislation. So all businesses are affected by that, whether you're small or whether you're large. Now, the implications, if you're large and you do a lot of data collection in Australia, the fines that you could incur if you have a data breach is more significant if you're larger. So obviously those organizations have come on board, and the medium size, but I'm now working with a lot of smaller organizations seeing the value in it as well. And as in Australia, more and more clients are demanding this standard.
Have you started seeing these standards pop up in RFPs?
Yes, I can say clearly yes, and especially government organisations in Australia, absolutely. And more commercial clients as well. And I know in the UK and Spain, Netherlands, they have a similar situation. I'm hoping that Annie and I work on the TC 225 committee that is trying to help countries that haven't implemented this standard globally yet. And we're wanting them to kind of go to their governments as well and say, make this a requirement. So Annie, what's happening in Canada?
In Canada, we're in a slightly different situation because CRIC is fairly new, just a couple of years. But from day one, attesting to or certifying to the standard was number one on one of the things they wanted to do. And I know once things get settled out, they will move the next step to involving the government in this. It used to be part of the government requirements to be to follow the national organization standards and ethics, and I expect the new organization CRIC will do the same as well. I think we're going to get to a point where most companies will realize they have to certify our test if they want to be competitive with all of the other companies out there.
That's right. And obviously benefits going to those that jump on the bandwagon earlier as well. So.
As Elissa said, they will benefit in many ways. If you have your processes in place now, it saves so much time in many other ways. You're already certified, so you don't have to fuss with all the government requirements, all that sort of thing, but you just save all that time because you have your processes in place.
Cool. So thinking about return on investment, do you have any examples or case studies of organizations who have undertaken the necessary steps to comply? And what impact or lift have they experienced as a result?
Yeah, it's difficult because of the confidentiality for me to give specific examples, but the overarching thing that I see is that it saves rework, and clients know the cost of this as well. When you've got a supplier that's made an error in field work and then has to redo it, the cost of that to the company and the client in terms of wasted resources and the time, that is the biggest saving, because you implement an ISO framework that covers the processes right from giving the proposal to the client all the way through to implementing the research, the data collection, the data processing. It covers every aspect of that to the delivery to the client and the outcomes. And then part of the ISO framework is continual improvement and reviewing your processes every year. So the auditor actually checks that you are continuously reviewing your processes, which means things you did 5 years ago, you might still be able to get away with now, but they won't be as efficient. And so by constantly looking at your business processes, the client can be assured that you are keeping up to date with the latest developments, technologies, with the legal requirements. The auditor will assist you with that. And so they're the benefits, is that you've got a system that's organic, it's evolving, and it's continuously improving. So that is the biggest benefit that I see. But there are a number of benefits, clients asking for it and you just being able to tick that you've got that certification, suppliers asking that you have it, tick, you've got it. Also, that if staff turnover is a big issue at the moment, I think we're seeing that globally. There's so many companies struggling with finding staff. If you've got a framework and you get a new staff member, you've already got the processes. You know what training they need to do their part of the business. One of the things we look at in the standard is, do you have an organisation chart? Do you define the roles within your business? What are the competencies required of those people doing that job? What training do they need every year to keep up to date and to keep their skills up? And so once you have all of that in place, it's really easy to fit someone new into the business.
Exactly what you're saying, Elissa, is what my company's experienced. So E2E Research is also prepping for our 20252 audit. We're already doing a lot of documentation. We've got our processes written down. And as you say, right from the beginning all the way to the end of the whole research process, from hiring, even just hiring, here are all the things that people need to be trained on in each of the roles, whether it's an analyst, a statistician, someone in sampling, we have that all documented. So it's really easy to know what's missing, what's not missing. And so training is simple. Doing projects in multiple countries is simple. We know that if we do a project in Japan, in Brazil, in Spain, they're all going to follow the same process because everyone's working off the same written down playbook. Whether you're working with someone whose first language is English, Spanish, Indian, whatever the language is, we've all got the same book in front of us. So it really provides for consistency of work everywhere, across every job, from beginning to end of every job. It's fantastic for many things, reducing errors, simplifying training, simplifying projects. It's just unending advantages to going with the standards.
So do you think from an employee perspective, once you've worked in a 225 environment, would you not want to go back?
I could say I would find it frustrating because personally, I'm a rules person. I'm a documentation person. Anytime I do any project, I assume that it's going to happen a second, third, fourth, fifth time. So I don't want to have to rethink about it every single time. So if I'm going to go somewhere that doesn't have standards, so I have to write these again because I don't want to have to rethink the same project over and over again. Just put it on paper, and I know we're all on the same page. Whether I'm new or been here 20 years, I know we're all on the same page. So I would not want to be in a place that had no standards, unless the fact of writing the standards, the processes for the business was my job, because that
Sure.
might be a little bit fun.
And then I guess last point on that part, the certification belongs to the business, but is there a way that employees can say that they are also certified in this as well?
That's a really nice question. I know in Australia we have individual certifications that fit into 20252. So we have QPR, Qualified Professional Researcher. And if you have QPRs in your business, that's a really easy way for the auditor to check that you train those researchers, because they're constantly keeping their skills up to date under the QPR program. But if you don't have that, then employees can say that they are part of the 20252 company, and the company gives them, induction training and annual training in various topics. So that's really it. But I think that's something to think about, isn't it, Annie?
Yeah, I'm thinking now. I know in Canada we've got the CA certified professionals in Canada, our CAPE certification. The US has certification, but there's nothing for individuals specifically in 20252. So now I'm wondering,
because it could be a bit of a badge of honor, couldn't it? So like,
Yeah.
I've helped
a huge
It's
badge of honor.
In the initial IQCA program that the standard evolved from, there used to be a certificate that the field workers could get once they went through the IQCA training to say that they'd done the training. So that could be something down the track. But I think that this is a company standard. It's for businesses and it's for them to, and it's across all their processes in the business. So that's why it's more focused on that.
Yeah.
No, but it certainly is something I'm going to think about in terms of the CAPE certification in Canada, because it's still under development. Is there a place to somehow coordinate it along with 20252? Why not? We can look at it. At least here we can.
Nice. So what value can organizations and sites teams expect to gain when they get the certification right, signed off, etc.?
I mean, there's so much value. There is the initial cost of implementing the standard, and then you have to go through an audit every year. But there's a big initial audit, and then there's surveillance audits that follow that. I think the value is implementing a framework that everyone's working from the same page, as Annie said, and then the value of saving all that rework and the wasted resources. So even though there's an initial investment to implement the standard, if you haven't documented your processes and you have to pay for the audit, the benefits will far outweigh that initial investment, because you are saving on having great processes that you can use, throughout the life cycle of your business that will continuously improve and evolve.
Completely agree. It's clarity of processes, outputs, expectations, communications for everyone involved, and the value there is unending.
I think it's quite hard to quantify quality. And I know the American Quality for All campaign that Circa doing are looking at that exact thing, looking at businesses that have implemented, and can we actually quantify that quality? What does it mean? And the key message is the consistent outputs and the ability, if there is an error, to rectify that very quickly and save resources. But we are looking at that at the moment. So I'd be really interested if anyone has ideas about how we could actually quantify the quality so that we can really prove to everyone what's the benefit. We're advocates, clearly, but we understand.
We'll do some randomized test control. We'll force some companies to certify and force other companies not to certify.
Yeah.
Would you ever, I guess, add impact of market research into it? So being able to demonstrate the role that market research has played in the business, because that can often be, I mean, it's a business outcome which would always be desirable, but from a standards perspective, it's a little harder.
It's so true. I mean, there are awards I know in Australia and in the UK and various countries celebrate the impact of research and the effectiveness of research in the market. And the great thing about the standard is that your projects are so closely monitored and managed. It's very good to see. It's very easy to pick out the ones that really demonstrate great impact, because one of the aspects that you also look at is client satisfaction in the standard. So you have to look at a way of monitoring your client satisfaction, even if it's just them sending an email and saying, that was a great job, thank you, or telling you in a presentation, fantastic, we're thrilled with those results. That will help you think, yeah, that's the project that was a real winner. And I think as an industry, having been the Research Society's CEO for 16 years and only leaving last year, that is the most important thing. We should really demonstrate the impact and effectiveness of research. And the standard has a real part to play in that.
It is an interesting point, though. How can we show value in terms of better quality, better work arising out of 20252? So we can think about that a little more and see if there are some more quantitative, rigorous ways to prove that.
Nice. My last question for you, Annie. So you mentioned that you're going through the audit process at the moment.
Prepping for it.
Prepping for, yes. So going
Yep.
from helping to produce the standard now to prepping for it, are there any insights or wow moments that you've had from it? Just I now understand why that's in there, or
Oh. Well, I've been involved with 20252 for, I don't know, 8 years now. So I've seen every single word of the standard and sort of rewritten every single word of the standard at one point or the other. So it all makes sense to me, but I could totally see that somebody from an outside space might not see the relevance of all the pieces in the standard. But the thing is, however many countries are involved, 10 countries involved, discussing each point in minute detail, why they want it this way, why it won't work another way. So many brains have gone into every piece. So even if you don't completely understand why something is written a certain way, there is very specific reasoning behind everything, which fortunately I've heard firsthand. Not everybody has heard firsthand. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I know exactly why we need to do all the things in the standard. But sometimes folks will have questions, and Elissa will be one of the people that can help them figure out why some things are worded some way, or what they might need to do to get closer to the standard.
Very cool. So before I do a quick recap of what we've discussed, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
I'll just say mostly thank you for letting us talk about the standards. As I mentioned, it's so many people involved all around the world, putting literally hundreds, thousands of hours each person into thinking, writing, reframing everything. There's so much work that goes into it, and to know that people appreciate the work that's being done, it's really great. And I'm glad that you're able to shine a light on the importance of the standards.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'd say that too. And I'd say we put the standard out as a tool for everyone across the globe. And why don't you just purchase it? You purchase it through the standard itself, through your standards body in your country. And in Australia, it's Standards Australia. New Zealand would have one. Annie has her. You purchase it for a couple of $100, and then you've got all the requirements, and you can just look and see, is this something my business that will assist my business? Even if you don't want to get audited, why don't you purchase the standard, have a look at it, because it is our best practice guide for what the industry says you should be doing. Things like validation, checking data, all the quality checks, you can look and see what is best practice. You could implement them in your business by yourselves, not even get audited, and you're still doing better than if you never looked at that document. Yep. So buy the document. I know it's an initial investment, but it will be worth it. And then just have a look. See how you like it. And if you have questions, there are people globally who can help you.
That's really cool. Okay, so if I can recap what we've talked about today, ISO 20252 is a standard that's come in to help the whole industry to align on best practices to lift the overall effectiveness and impact that we offer the world. As many people know, market research plays such a key role in societies around the world. And so if we can improve the effectiveness and also efficiencies as well, we're all going to be better off. We dived into a little bit of the history of the standard, so starting back in 2007, and we're looking forward very much to a refreshed standard as well in 2024 as well. It's going to be very fascinating to see the impact of COVID, how that plays in the standards as well. I mean, there's been so much talk over the last little while about the degradation of sample quality, etc. So it just highlights again the need for such standards. So it will be, obviously organizations will be very wise to comply and to buy the standard, as you said. We had a look into what the certification looks for, so the various annexes, depending on what type of organization you are or where you fit into the value chain. We saw that it is applicable for client teams, so businesses, agencies, consultants, so everyone that touches the market. We had a look on the various methodologies and the business angles on when you should be looking at or what parts of the business should be looking at and fixing and adjusting with what. Talked about the various certification bodies as well, which touched on also the overall awareness and uptake of the standard around the world. And then finally, we looked into the value that companies can have when they take on this the certification as well. So lifting all standards, all outcomes, etc., across the board. It's very good to see. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us, Annie and Elissa. It has been a great conversation, and yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're quite all right. And a big thanks to everyone else for joining us on the episode today. For the listeners out there, we'd really appreciate if you subscribe to the podcast, shared it with others, or even left a review. And if you do want to get certified or even talk about this more, feel free to reach out to Annie, Elissa, or jump on Google. I'm sure you'll find a lot of information on that. So thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.